You're listening to the Youth for Life podcast with Michelle Baum, Director of Y4Life at Lutherans for Life, where we prepare youth to be gospel-motivated voices for life. Be sure to stick around after today's live recording of our Chats for Life program to find out how you can be live too on our next Youth for Life podcast. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of our Youth for Life podcast, our mailbag edition. Today, what we're going to be doing is talking about dating and all things involved with that. Again, our mailbag episodes come from questions that our youth have sent in, whether at conferences or email. And we'd love to hear your questions too. So let's get started on our mailbag edition on dating. And today, there's four of us, just there as there has been in the past. Just real quick, if you ladies want to say hi, again, I'm Michelle, Director of Y4Life.
Hi, I'm Macy, the Y4Life summer intern.
Diana, the Media Resource Assistant.
And I'm Corey, I'm the Y4Life Assistant.
All right, Corey, start us off with a question.
Okay, what should a couple do to be able to follow God, but also have a fun and safe dating relationship?
Obviously, I think having set boundaries is important, but also making sure that you go to church together. That's pretty darn important because you should be doing those two things, right? If you don't have the same expectations, it's going to be stressful, and stress is not fun.
True. Go ahead, Macy.
Bouncing off you, Diana, about going to church together. I think that's starting every single hangout with your boyfriend or girlfriend by reading scripture. Maybe starting or ending, just always read scripture together. Because that kind of sets the tone for what your hangout's going to be and whether your behavior is going to please God. And also, what the point of, like Diana said, setting your expectations. And also just studying scripture together is really edifying for whether it's with your family or your friends or your significant other, your boyfriend or girlfriend. That's going to be good.
Yeah, and I think Macy, you come from a college perspective, right? Which college dating and maybe it's a little bit more mature than a high school perspective, right? Because I think of my example or my experience at a local high school, at a public high school. We didn't have a Lutheran high school around, and I think if I had opened with, "Hey, let's start with scripture," I think that they would look at me like, "Whoa, you are weird," right? And I think that is the goal to get to. I agree, but I think and you both said it, you have to make it part of your relationship early. So, my dad had a rule growing up that you could go on exactly one date before you found out if the guy you were dating was Christian. And if he was Christian, great. What church did he go to? And if he wasn't going to church, you had exactly one date to invite him to come with you. And so I remember as a high school student being like, oh man, what a horrible rule. But it was actually a really great rule, right? So start with the basics, actually have the conversation, so what do you believe? From a religious point of view. And my dad's like, you cannot go on a second date if you've not had that you've not answered that question in an honest way. And so again, just an encouragement to start that conversation early. And if they aren't going to church, then bring them to church. Get them involved in your youth group. Start worshiping with them, just like, Diana said, go to church. Start reading the Bible with them, just like you said, Macy, right? I think that is those are good goals. That's what you're moving toward. And then you've got this common foundation, hopefully, that you can lean on or build on, because there's lots of fun things you can do with someone you're dating that doesn't involve sex. There's a lot of fun things. And I think we're going to talk about some of those later because we've got some other questions in there about fun, free things to do. But yeah, if God can't be a part of the relationship, then you shouldn't have the relationship.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, just tacking on one last thing. I know it feels kind of taboo now to do group dates, but like getting a group of your Christian friends together and going out to eat together, because then you can have those conversations. They don't feel as heavy. Like, oh man, I have to like introduce the gospel, like, because maybe it is someone that grew up in a Christian house, but they don't regularly attend church. So then the impetus is not just on you, it's actually a group conversation. And then also it keeps it safe because there's more people around, so you don't feel some of the other pressures, the temptations, that would arise if it were just one-on-one in a more private setting. So I think that's my big thing is group dates are always fun because it's always great to really get to hang out with other people, but then you also are definitely keeping safe boundaries like Diana was talking about, like setting those very early on so you know what is expected of their relationship moving forward.
Yeah, and today's dating population has this like great advantage that I did not have back in the dinosaur days, where you can actually have some of those questions answered via text before you even go on a date, right? Like it can be something that you can just say, "Hey, so I'm going to church. Do you go to church?" Like, or "Yeah, I just got back from church. What do you go to church? Do you believe?" I mean, you can even have those conversations before you date, because today's youth have this very long we're talking period, right? Which
Hmm.
didn't really happen uh, as much in my dating experience, for sure. We just didn't have the technology to do that. You just kind of had to do it face to face. So we did have phones. I don't want anyone to think that we didn't have phones. But cell phones, nobody had personal cell phones. That's like
The
rich.
But Michelle, you had the benefit you had to date within like your school because those are people you saw every day, whereas now you can have those long distance relationships earlier on. And I think that's the other part that's not so safe because there's more temptations with that too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So benefits of both, right?
Mhm.
All right. How about you, Macy? What question do you have?
Yeah. Um, so just kind of going off of that, what's the best piece of dating advice that you have, especially if it's in the early stages?
Having those conversations early about your faith and where you stand. I remember one of the guys that I briefly dated in high school, my grandma asked me if he was baptized. And that was really weird getting that question from my grandma because I didn't have that conversation with him because I didn't know I was supposed to. So, like Michelle said, that rule that I'm going to be implementing for my kids now. They're years off from dating, but I'm just gonna hold on to that. But yeah, having those conversations early, so you can set that foundation early on and those expectations again. Um, and also, yeah, just talking. Don't just like sit and do nothing together. Like actually have a conversation.
I think one of my best pieces of advice would be to be friends. Uh, it is so much easier to date someone that you've developed a friendship with, right? So Corey mentioned group dates. That's a great way to figure out if you have commonalities with them. Obviously, texting beforehand, talking beforehand, it's a great way to see if you have some commonalities, some things that could build into a friendship. Um, that's not to say that you're gonna friend zone everyone, right? Like you'll never get out of the friend zone. I know that's kind of a fear, but the truth is, like the person you end up marrying should be a great friend because you'll be spending the rest of your life with that person, right? And dating should be about finding someone to marry, right? So you're not. I think that's maybe the second piece of advice, and I know we're only supposed to have one, but dating is not just something to fill your time with. Dating is for marriage. So if you're not thinking about marriage or you're like, there's no way I'd marry anyone from my hometown, then don't date anyone from your hometown. Because because it is you're just setting yourself up for not only heartbreak, but for the possibility that the gifts that God intends to give you in marriage, that they will be used beforehand. And just avoid that temptation.
I would say marry someone, or if you're not completely like comfortable around that person, like if you can't genuinely be yourself, you feel like you have to put on a show or something, or your like personality is too much for them and you feel like you need to tone it down. Uh, Speaking from prior experience,
What?
um, it's probably a big red flag, right? So you want someone that like that friendship is just natural and flowing with, and not someone that you feel like you have to settle with. Because especially at the end of your college experience, it's hard when you're graduating, especially from a Concordia, not in a relationship or married, right? Uh, so I think just finding the person that you're yourself around, like your genuine, quirky, silly little self, and they are their quirky little self too.
Yeah. I also think that it's really important to 100% go in knowing that like Christ is the thing that you can't disagree on, right? That you have to agree that Christ is at the center. But also it's really important to go into relationships knowing that this person that you're dating, they've come from a completely different background from you. They have different parents. They might have grown up in a different place, and you kind of have to keep an open mind. Like your way of doing things is not the entirely right way of doing things. Like maybe they approach a problem a little differently. And you have to be able to have an open mind and have a conversation with them about things. I mean, obviously, you don't want to give ground on the important things like church, but you do need to give ground on some of the less important things like, uh, you know, what do we want to name kids? Like, not that you be talking about kids early on, but little things like that.
Yeah. Diana, your turn. What question you want to ask?
Can I reassure my, how can I reassure myself when I feel that there's no one in the world that wants to date me? Let's go. Let's throw a heavy one on there.
That comes up multiple times, right? In our mailbag. I want to date someone. I'm not sure if that's going to happen. Um, yeah. What is there someone out there? A lot of concerns. So, great question. Who wants to tackle it first?
I want to lead off with the first reminding yourself that Paul actually says it's okay to be single, and that we can more fully serve the church when we are single. So first remembering that our calling first and foremost is um showing Christ through our vocations to others. And so when you're single, you can most fully serve, because your focus is solely on serving our Creator. So that's the first reassurance that I have. But then also just it may be a season where you're in high school, and if you were like me, you went to high school and your graduating class was 100 people. That's not very many people, and those are people that you have known for at least 4 years of high school, maybe more. And it's okay if they don't want to date you because they probably are like, I have grown up with that person. We are really great friends, but I don't see, like we talked about, like I don't see me ever being fully able to be myself with that person. Um, or you know, there's the thing of in college maybe you're now in this massive group of people and you just haven't gotten to know anyone yet. You should not be going into college like day one thinking I'm finding my spouse today or something like that. You should go into it wanting to form those friendships like Michelle talked about, being friends first and then moving into a dating relationship. So those are things also like to remember is if you've gone through high school and you haven't really dated anyone, it's okay. You don't have to date in high school. And then if you get to college and you're like, oh, no one wants to date me, like there are other ways that you can serve and be friends with people. It's not just immediately day one, I'm in college, now I have to find a spouse. There's time, and God will still work through you no matter what stage of dating or marriage you are in.
Yeah, Corey, and I think going off of what you're saying, especially with the Concordia systems, like there's so many blessings because so many people find their spouses there, and that's great. But I also know that there's a lot of people who don't find their spouses there, and they I think often feel this way, like nobody likes me, and I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life. But college is just a short season of life, and you're going to meet so many other people, and our spouse, we know that our spouses are a gift from God. And so if God is not giving you your spouse at this time, it doesn't mean you did something wrong. It just means he's maybe helping you grow in another way. And this is like not a really a religious example, but my mom always told me, I don't know if any of you have heard of the George Strait song called Out of the Blue Clear Sky, but my mom always told me that's how she felt about my dad because right when she stopped dating, my dad just came out of the blue clear sky and everything worked out perfectly. And I maybe that's not perfect, but that I think that's kind of God gives us our spouse when we're ready for it, not necessarily on our terms.
Man, Macy, where was that advice 20 years ago for me? Um, but no, it's, it can be frustrating, right? And I remember having lots of conversations because out of my friend group, I was the last one to be married. And it was kind of like you're like a professional bench warmer in the dating scene almost. Like, put me in, coach, I'm ready. And God's like, not yet, right? But looking back at it, I did get to do lots of really exciting things. Like I had an amazing school that I taught at, which had a phenomenal mission field that most of the kids weren't even Lutheran, right? So I got to spend like most of my days telling tiny little humans how much Jesus loves them. And I like did traveling and all that kind of stuff. And then like in a random call committee meeting one night, I get set up, right? So you never exactly know how or when, but you need to trust the process. Trust that God knows what's on your heart and he would not deny you that gift.
Yeah, I this is a hard one, right? Because it is such a strong desire for so many young people to find that one. And you're right, Diana. I mean, the God knows the desires of our heart, and He desires. He is a God of good gifts. He is the best gift giver, right? And He desires to give gifts. And so it is hard sometimes when it seems like God's answer is no. And I sometimes the answer is just no, not yet. And I think a lot of our answers have said that, just to wait, to be patient. And as we're waiting, to rejoice in the gifts that God has given, right? Like Diana, you mentioned experiences you have. Friendships you have. God certainly does not want us to be alone for life, and He provides Christian community and family and friends in our lives to continue to love and to care for us, just as we love and care for them. And you both, well, all three of you talked about those opportunities for service. I do have a couple of friends who are adult women who have never gotten married and who in college and in high school did have that desire. But what I've seen in their lives is that God answered that desire in different ways. One of them one just got married a few years ago, and so there's marriage later in life. But one has decided that she is content being single for the rest of her life, and God has changed that desire for her, right? Like she has been able to be part of our family and part of other families, and our children kind of see her as an extra aunt. And so and and she's rejoiced in her nieces and nephews, and we've talked about that it's that those desires have changed, and that she is much more content. So I don't want to anyone who's listened to this saying, I don't want you to think that just because God hasn't provided now, well, maybe I will have to be single. If you end up single, God is going to be with you in that as well, and going to give you the comfort and the people in your life, and a change in desires, right? And that's comforting to know, right? We aren't the same all of our lives. Our desires and dreams, they change as we get older, and sometimes, they change in massive ways. And so we wait with patience. We wait with the knowledge that God is always a good gift giver. And we rejoice in the gifts that God has given, and know that, God has some really great things in store. And ask other people to pray that God would have a spouse for you in store. So,
Yeah, I like what you said. It made me think of when Paul says, I have learned through all things to be content, no
yeah.
matter the situation.
And that's hard. It's not something at 15 or 18 or 21 that's easy to be content, right? But it's also okay to say I'm gonna, as I mature, my contentedness will change.
Mhm.
Right? So, on building on that, then let's talk about the difference between what real love looks like and what lust looks like, right? Because our society kind of messes that up, right? So, what do you think? What's the difference between love and lust?
Yeah. I may be the most disqualified to talk about this because I kind of have the least amount of life experience, but my parents, who are like my ideal relationship, I just like really admire their relationship and the love that they have for each other. And they always told me that love is looking for the need of the other person. Like and like everything that you do is about helping the other person and upholding them. So like my dad, and that looks different for each person in the relationships. Like my dad, for him that looks like working really hard and so that my mom can do the things that she does at home. For my mom, that means, cleaning up the house when my dad gets home from work so that it's nice and clean and that he's happy. Um and then but lust on the other hand is kind of like objectifying the other person. Like when you look at them, all you see is what their body can do for you. Whether that's, sexual or whether that's just like using them in other ways. But love is sacrificial, like how we get the example that we get from Christ. Whereas lust is selfish and yeah.
And self-serving. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I remember this was, oh, probably too early to be having this conversation about things, but I was at church camp and I remember our camp counselor telling us like you shouldn't call a boy hot because we are all made in the image of God. And would you call God hot? You can call him handsome or beautiful, but you would not call God hot. So why would you call a boy hot? And that just stuck with me as like what a good example of lust. Like again, what you said, Macy, of like just like, oh, what can I get from this? And like this is what I need right now versus the sacrifice and like seeing others in God's image, you remember, okay, this is someone that I am made to serve, and give and be sacrificial. So I just wanted to like it's a really dumb example from like 15 years ago at church camp, but it has stuck with me because I'm like, oh man, I never wanted to call a boy hot after my camp counselor said that to me because I was like, that's yucky. Why? So that's been my biggest thing is like if I would call that person hot, then it's not love.
Yeah, I'd have to go with like lust is selfish and love is giving, like you guys said, because lust is very much satisfying your needs. But also, like, lust won't get you to like the end game, right? because you're not putting those person's needs first. It's a very superficial way of putting your relationship. Like it's based on your eyes and what you want and not your heart and what you can give.
Yeah, you just said something really important, Diana. It is based on you, right? Your eyes, your, like your desires. And love is, first of all, it is an action, right? And secondly, it is focused on someone else, right? God is love, and everything that God does is for the benefit of his people. So, that's kind of the measuring stick. And we love imperfectly, but we do have a perfect God who shows us what that perfect love looks like. And it is completely sacrificial. It is self-sacrificing, and it cares for the other. Um, I know people have probably heard this, but God gives us a definition of love, right? 1 Corinthians 13. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered. All of those things. Love doesn't delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. So he gives us, I mean, he wants us so much to know what love is that he not only tells us in words, but he shows us in actions. And I think in a relationship, love, you know it's love when you see the person who supposedly is loving you, when you see that person choose what is best for you, right? And vice versa, when you desire to do what is best for the person you love. Um, and there's different types of love. You see this in families, mother and child, or father and child. There's different types of love, but the common denominator is that it is not self-serving. So it's a great, great question. And Christians have a wonderful uh, one up right? on on the secular society, because we actually get to see and know intimately a God who is love. All right, second round of questions. Corey, you up?
Yeah, so just kind of walking down the list here that we have, what are practical ways Gen Z can set examples of good relationships in dating and marriage, especially for younger generations, Gen Alpha, and actually this year we're going to start getting into Gen Beta. So we've got two younger generations now.
Maybe like the first practical thing that comes to my mind is outward things that we do in a relationship, like are we living with our spouse before marriage? Um, so maybe showing the younger generations that we are differentiating between dating and marriage and holding marriage as is sacred the right word? Holding marriage is sacred, and keeping that balance there. But then also things like little things like respecting your partner while you're dating, or your boyfriend or girlfriend while you're dating, by, actually loving her rather than lusting after her, like we just talked about with those definitions.
I think going to church together, right? Like, I think that younger generations will see that. And then also just doing little, kind, respectful things like holding the door open, opening the car door, just respecting each other and upholding each other as the person that you want to be with and that God has joined you together with, and showing them love and compassion in that way too.
I think another one that we're going to continue to see an increase in technology and the availability of it is putting your phone down or not having the TV on or, not reading on your Kindle or whatever while you're spending time with that other person. Like checking the time on your phone is one thing, but if you're actively just sitting and scrolling while you're supposed to be on this very intimate date setting, whether you're married or you're getting to know someone and you're still in that dating phase, like that can be a big hindrance to a relationship. So setting all of the technology aside and just being with the person is something that I think is uh, has been a detriment to a lot of Gen Z and younger relationships is the increase in technology and the decrease of face-to-face time.
Yep, that's exactly where I was going to jump in as well, Corey. I think actually there's some really great things that Gen Z has done. Gen Z is very relational, and they in general are getting married younger and they're having kids earlier. There's a lot of really positive, life-affirming things that Gen Z is doing. But one of the areas that Gen Z maybe is failing in comparison to future or previous generations is this tendency to form relationships via technology rather than face to face. Whether that is this AI, right? Tendency to have some sort of AI fake girlfriend, which has kind of become the rage, or whether it's just being content with long distance or with not that online dating is going away, but making it physically present, right? The relationship a physical one, not in terms of sexuality, but in terms of face to face, right? Touch is an important part, holding hands, being face to face, and um, I think recognizing that a person is not just a mind, but also a body. And I know that's more cerebral, right? Maybe less. It's but it is a philosophy that Gen Z has embraced that you can like fall in love with even this AI girlfriend, and that's not healthy. So moving dating back to something that is in person as much as possible um and like in the same room, right? Right, going to the same place together. I think that would be a good example setter. How about next question? Um, Macy, do you have a choice?
Yeah. So I've had a few relationships with men which I had hoped would grow deeper and end in marriage, but only ended in disappointment and discouragement. What advice or encouragement do you have for people like me?
I think remember just a little bit ago we kind of addressed this, but we talked about or I mentioned that God is a good gift giver, right? And so I think even with those few relationships that didn't work out, um, even that can be seen in the end as a gift, right? God has given you an opportunity to see what you want in a marriage, what you want in a future spouse, and what you don't want. And even though there is heartbreak involved in that, um, I think it's important to recognize that each dating relationship also is an opportunity to learn and to grow into the person that you will become as a spouse in the future, right? So first, my first response would be to say I'm super sorry, right? Because that hurts, and um, certainly let me encourage you that things will get better, right? But also when you have a little distance to be able to reflect on it and to say, okay, so this is what I know now that I want or I don't want in a relationship.
Since Macy brought up the 90s country, I'm going to bring up a 90s country song too. And it's sometimes I thank God for unanswered prayers. Like looking back at some of my previous relationships and now looking at my husband, I'm like, thank you, God. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, you know way better than me because I have it like made in the shade now, right? Like, so I think that, like, while it hurts in the moment and it's maybe a little discouraging and a little frustrating because it's not going according to your plan, look to like the future and be like, okay, there's something better. And while this is what I want at the moment, like Michelle said, God's a better gift giver. And I'm going to look back at this and be like, I'm really glad it didn't work out. And take that from me because it's a really good feeling to look back and being like, wow, I really wanted that. Like, it's hard to say because you don't want to like talk down about someone. I really wanted that, but God like really upgraded for me.
Yeah, you're not sharing names, so don't worry. Don't worry.
Yeah.
You're not sharing. So, and I think one of the questions that we have later kind of actually plays into this as well, and that is like, what's the best advice for finding a godly wife or a godly husband, right? What do you guys think? What is the best advice?
I think just always start with scripture and like especially for a godly wife, like the question asks. I mean, Proverbs 31 tells you exactly, God tells you exactly what you should look for and what you should pray for. And I think that also goes back to, are you looking for a relationship built on love or relationship built on lust? Because if you're saying like, God, give me an attractive spouse, or like Corey's example, give me a hot spouse or something like that, that's probably not a very, or that's definitely not a very good thing to be praying for. But if you're praying for like, give me a hardworking spouse, a spouse that, loves Christ, a spouse that loves me, that's a really good place to start.
Yeah, the kind of outdated advice I got was like write the list of what you want in a spouse and tuck it in your Bible so then you would remember to pray over your future spouse, or pray for. I have seen now what I would actually recommend instead of that is just praying for your future spouse. So when you're finishing your time of devotion and you're not dating or you are dating someone, but you're not sure if it's headed towards marriage, even if you want it to be, just praying like, God, you know who I'm going to marry. You have that person in mind. Please be with him or please be with her. Guide him or her to be closer to you. You know, those things that you would pray for of your current spouse. Be praying for those things for your future spouse. Um, it's a lot better than I remember just like, oh, write what you want on a list and put it in your Bible. And the first one should always be a godly husband. So like, yeah, okay, write that on the list. And then like hardworking, sure. And then just put that on your Bible and pray over it. I'm like, that doesn't feel as comforting as just praying that God would continue to work in the life of the other person, though. They're very different things because one is, again, very lust-based, what you want, and self-serving. And the other is praying for someone maybe you don't even know yet, but saying, God, be with this person, help him or her to grow closer to you and grow in relationship to you and be ready for a marriage relationship in the future, whomever you have in mind for me. Um, so um, yeah, that would be my advice.
My advice would be along the same page as previous suggestions. Obviously, first, like you want someone who's a Christian, right? Like Christ first in everything. And that should be in relationships too. And then secondly, prayer. Like this is gonna sound super cheesy. The thing that was different with my husband is I would pass where he worked. Our bosses were married and they set us up. So on my way, like I had a long commute. I drove the length of Chicago for work. So I would drive past where he would work. And spent like 5 minutes just wholeheartedly praying for him. And like if that's the relationship that God had planned, like if it was going to work out, like just genuinely praying for good things for him, that he would grow in his faith in Jesus and that he would love work and he would have a good work ethic. And this is like while we were being set up. So, um, and that if it was going to hurt me, that I would be able to see it, right? Like, I honestly think that prayer when dating is a huge, huge key.
Yeah. And prayer is, and I think entrusting that to God again is so important, praying for that spouse. One of the things that I've told my boys, and whether they like to hear it or not, right? And one of them is married, is you also you find a spouse by going a godly spouse by going to godly places and looking for them, right? So go to church. Go to church and look for a spouse there. Go to a school where you might, yeah, like both of my sons went to a Concordia, and that was part of the decision, for their decision for going. Maybe I will encounter someone there that I can marry. And that does work out sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't. But even if you're not going to Concordia and you're going to a state school, is there a Lutheran campus ministry? Is there and should that play into where you choose to go to college? I think it should. As a high school teacher at Lutheran schools before I joined here, it's important. You wouldn't you know when you're going to buy a house or when you're going to move, you're going to explore the area, right? So choose a college that actually has a Lutheran church close by or a Lutheran ministry. There's so many colleges out there, even state colleges that will get you the degree you want. You shouldn't go to a college where you can't go to church or where you won't have a community of Christian believers to support you, right? And those are natural places to find godly spouses. Online, if there are natural places to find godly spouses, then that's great to be in those places. Um, there are, I don't know if you've, heard there's a movement among Lutheranism right now to uh, serve young adults, to bring them together and to help them to meet each other. So there's actually some really great young adult gatherings that are happening across the nation. Email me, Michelle@Y4Life.org, if you want to be connected with a listserv for that, but also our own YA for Life events that are coming up. We have one every quarter. Again, a great place for 20 to 35-year-olds to meet other people. And whether it's a future spouse or not, um, engaging with other people, letting them know what you're looking for. Like Diana said, her boss set her up because she knew her and knew what she was looking for. And, help other people that you trust that are Christians. Invite them to be looking and helping you find someone. Like the whole classic blind date. I know that was, kind of it's been on the outs, but at the same time, if you have people in your life who love you and know you, they're gonna want what's best for you. They're not just gonna connect you with someone that's gonna be a bad match purposely, right? But I think it is important to actually be physically someplace where you can meet people.
And also, Michelle, sorry, that made me think of something else that's been really important that my parents always taught me is that like your parents are a great gift from God, and like they're your authority in life, and they're there to give you advice for things like this. And I know that my parents always told me like if you like we're here to help you find a spouse. Not that your parents are like setting you up with people or having arranged marriages, but they're there to answer hard questions for you and give you advice and maybe be like, yeah, this probably isn't the right person for you, and guide you through tough times. So,
Yeah, I think you're right about that, Macy. And that is certainly a red flag. If your parents do not like the guy that you're dating or the gal that you're dating, you should probably listen, right? Because your parents have known you for your whole life. And good and godly parents want lasting relationships for their kids. They want good, long marriages. So if they say, no matter how hard it is to hear your mom or dad say, probably not the right one, it's you should listen.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
Like, tr I'm a very intuitive person. And if you are a very intuitive person, it can be a gift from God. So I'm going to say trust your like God-given intuition on those situations um because it is a gift from him. And if you're getting the ick and you're in the relationship, it's probably not a good thing to date them then.
Yeah, that's actually one of the questions that we had mailed in. And that is, what if a guy likes me and wants to marry me, but I don't like him? Um, I think you just answered that question, Diana. The answer is do not marry him. right?
Yeah.
If yeah, go ahead, Corey.
I was just gonna say I had a guy that was like really wanted to date me in high school, and I brought it up to my dad. He goes, "Well, why don't you want to date him?" I was like, "I don't know, I just don't." And looking back, it's okay that I didn't date him. I was like, again, if you get the ick, you don't have to like even if your parents are okay with it, like you if you have the ick about that, you do not have to date that person.
Yep.
Y- You know, I had this conversation with Michelle a while ago because we have a mutual person that we know. And I was like, I'm gonna get stuck with this person, like for my spouse. Like that was my thought process a long time ago. And marriage is not about being stuck with someone. It's a joy and a gift and a unity. It's not like, oh, well, this is the last person I'm going to end up stuck with them. Like you're not in an arranged marriage.
Exactly. What about, like, is it okay to be serious? One of the questions is about getting married while you're still in college or wait till after you're graduated, that sort of thing. Is it okay? I mean, can a couple be serious enough for marriage even before they graduate from college? What are your guys' thoughts?
Yes, 100%. Every relationship is different. Every person's different. And some of my best friends at Concordia, Chicago, got married in college, and like it just makes total sense. When you're ready for marriage, get married, like if you and your boyfriend or girlfriend have decided to make that change together and you're ready, then there's no reason to put it off. Like, yes, money is scary, those things are scary, but God will take care of you. And I know that's sometimes easier said than done to believe it, but he will. He's promised to. But also if you want to wait until after graduation, I think that's okay too. Because also I think maybe you shouldn't get married until you're ready to have kids, because it is a natural thing that comes from being married. And so maybe if you're waiting to till you graduate college because you're not ready to have a kid, that's okay too. Every person's different.
Yeah, full disclosure, I got married before I graduated from college. So obviously my advice is when you're ready, you're ready. And go forward, knowing that God will bless and God will uphold. And yeah, it may be that there might be some hard financial years, but you know what? You're young. And young people can get by on a little less and be a little less. My experience is that they don't necessarily complain about it so much, right?
Mhm.
I think if you love the person and you're ready to get married, do not let graduation hinder that. Do not let finances hinder that. Um, it, do not let the, well, we have to have a massive wedding and there's no place that's open for us to rent until a year and a half from now. Like that, no, no. Marriage is a gift from God, and it happens whether there's 1,000 people at your wedding or 10. And marriage is a great gift. And so, and when you're ready, postponing is hard. Like when you know that person, and you've decided I'm marrying this person. Like I used to tell my friends and I've told my sons, don't be engaged for more than a year, right? Because the natural progression of a relationship is to want to be married and to do the things married people do. And so, yeah, I mean, obviously, as especially if you're a man, there are some financial, you should be ready to financially support. Uh, that doesn't mean that a woman can't contribute to that financial support, but Macy's right. Um, Once you start doing things that married people do, babies can come, right? And so it's good to have a plan for that, right? It's good to be able to pay for insurance, those sorts of things. But that doesn't mean that you have to have like a six-figure income before you get married.
Yeah. So I was engaged longer than 1 year, but my husband, shortly after we got engaged, did a full summer internship in Washington, D.C. So we weren't ready to get married at that point, and then we had another semester of school, and it was just one of those, for our peace of mind, we did get married after we graduated, but that was more of a just with the way that the timetable worked out. But yes, going back, I would get married sooner in that than later. Because it was very stressful too, just in the planning process of all of the ins and outs and doubts and things. So that would be my A is like if you're gonna get engaged, you do have to buckle down and start thinking about marriage. It is not just a, oh, now we can be indefinitely engaged thing. Like it is better to get married quicker after that than not, at least from my personal experience. But the other advice is that I have received is if you're waiting to get married until you're financially stable, you're also going to have that same mentality with kids. You're never going to be in a financially stable enough position where you feel you are ready. So just go ahead and do it. Like Michelle said, like if you're the man, you should be willing to like step up and financially provide for your wife and your future family. So you maybe are working some not so great jobs to provide along with your desired vocation. But again, you're never going to be in the most financially stable position. And honestly, it's better to be financially insecure when you're young and in your 20s than when you're older in your 50s because you're more inclined or you're starting to think about retirement and you're not going to be, all those things that come later in life. Much better to be financially insecure in your 20s and be able to get out of it and then live a long, happy marriage than just go through all of that struggle and then, be 50 and financially insecure and then also be more unhappy in your marriage because you did not work through things together earlier on.
Okay, I'm gonna go with the idea that each couple is different, right? So I think you would have to have some really big, tough conversations beforehand. Like, this is how we are going to handle things, and looking at responsibilities and that kind of stuff, because babies do come and they can come quite quickly. So, does that affect like how you can live on campus or things like that? I think responsibly looking into things and like kind of having a game plan would be very beneficial. But also, my in-laws got married at like 18 and 19, and they had a beautiful, very long, almost 50-year marriage, right? I think that there's really good things about it. And also, I'm going to say that like when you say your marriage vows, it's very clear in there for richer or poor. So, I mean, you love that person. You're going to be with them, whether like you hit the 8-figure income. Is that right? No, that's like really good.
That's really good. Yeah. I don't know.
You're doing all the
You
investing on
can,
top of work at that point.
if you marry someone with an 8-figure income, feel free to donate to Y4Life, right, Michelle?
That's right. Y4Life.org. Yes.
I don't know where my brain went with that. Okay, please don't marry like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. My gosh. But like you're signing up for richer or poor for sickness and in health. Like my sister-in-law married my brother who like had major health issues. Like she signed up for it, right? Like he was on the kidney transplant, like had a kidney transplant while they were engaged. Um, like you're signing up to be with that person through thick and thin. So, I mean, if it means that you're in a dorm at Concordia eating ramen noodles, that's what it is. You're making memories together. And if you're waiting for that big wedding, a lot of my friends who did get married early on kind of are look through their wedding album and they're like, I don't talk to this person, this person, this person, this person, this person. So as long as your parents are there and your family, like that's all you really need.
I think COVID kind of taught us that, didn't it? Like, I mean, yeah. It's great when you can have all the people there, but also sometimes it's the people you really need, right?
And
I
there's
we
nothing wrong with just a small, like, courthouse wedding. Like if you have your pastor there and you have like your witnesses, there's nothing wrong with that. If you're just like, I don't need the big wedding because society has told us to be married, you have to have the big wedding, and you don't. It's fine to just be very, very small, very family oriented, have your pastor there, do something just to be married.
Yeah,
Yeah, because that's what matters, right? Is the being married part matters, not the plated meal and the fancy decorations and all that. Because all that's just a day. You get to be married for a lifetime.
that's right. That's right. Well, we have covered quite a number of really great topics, and some of them a little heavier than others, right? So we thought we would have our last question be a little bit lighter, right? And our last question for today then is, do you know any good uh, Christian pickup lines? And I know Diana has one for us, but Diana's is really good. And so if there's anybody else who has one that's not as good, speak now or forever hold your peace, because once Diana tells you hers, we'll all be like, um, okay. Any takers? I thought of one yesterday, right? Like
Okay.
this would be for a guy who's like talking to a girl, and to say, hey, my name's whatever it might be. And I think you might be my missing rib.
So
Macy's like, bad.
no, that would work. I mean, I don't know.
All right. Any others?
This is definitely not as good as Diana's or even the rib one because it doesn't have the gender thing. But you could say, "Hey girl, are you Naomi? Because I'd follow you anywhere."
There you
But it
go.
doesn't work as well because that's like a mother-daughter
Yeah.
relationship. Like,
Yeah. No,
Um,
no, that's fun. That's fun.
you have to be careful when picking from Song of Solomon, but there's one about your teeth being like a flock of sheep. Your teeth are as wide as a flock of sheep or something like that. So it's always a good like biblical thing to bring in is just comparing someone's teeth to the whiteness of sheep.
I think that
There
was
was,
giving me the ick factor. I'm sorry.
I,
this is,
I just I didn't have a good one, and that was the only thing I could think of. So
That's great, Corey.
there is one with Ruth and Boaz, and it's like, my
Oh,
name's Boaz. Without you, I'm ruthless. That's not my joke, though.
yeah.
that's
My
good.
joke isn't necessarily a pickup line per se, but it does have to do with relationships, I guess. So it's, what is God's favorite planet? And it's Saturn because he put a ring on it.
Pretty good. And that's like, you could say that to somebody and be like just
Yeah.
an introductory joke, but it's marriage related for sure.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you, ladies, for your thoughts and contemplations and your honesty and your laughter. Thanks for the especially the man. I'm gonna remember that sheep one, Corey. Just I
I'm
can't.
gonna find the verse reference. I'll tag it in the description.
There you go. There you go. But and thanks for joining us today for our mailbag episode. We hope that you join us again next time, that you like and share, and just want to leave you with God's blessings on your week and your work for life. Thanks for joining us for today's life topic. Check out Y4Life.org or email Michelle at Y4Life.org to find out how and when you can go live with us at our next Chats for Life session. Or join us next time, right here at Y4Life Podcasts, where youth learn how to be gospel-motivated voices for life.